Insta360 has been gaining popularity over the past few years. They began with their 360 cameras, as their name suggests. They then transitioned into action cameras, including the Insta360 One RS, actually one of my favorite little travel cameras that you can just stick in your pocket. But now Insta360 is looking to pivot once again, not by releasing a new camera, but rather an accessory for cameras. In fact, this is a mobile gimbal that's not even designed for any of their cameras or any of their other products. This is the Insta360 Flow. Now, I've reviewed a number of mobile gimbals in the past, and in truth, they're all mostly the same. They basically give you the same exact performance, mostly the same features. There's nothing really unique about them. And for the most part, that's also true with the Insta360 Flow, with a few exceptions. Now to start with, let's look at the Flow's design, because that's where we're gonna see a lot of the similarities between this and one of its closest competitors. And despite sharing basically the same design as the DJI OM6, this is actually noticeably smaller, both when opened up, as well as when folded down. When folded, it measures about 6.4 by 3.1 by 1.4 inches. And that's a good amount smaller than the DJI OM6, which folds to about 7.4 by 3.3 by 1.7 inches. It's also more compact when it opens up. It measures about 10.6 by 2.9 by 2.8 inches compared to the OM6's 10.9 by 4.4 by 3.9 inches. And then it has basically the same idea with how you attach your phone using a clip that goes on the back of your phone's case. This is magnetic. You'll notice that there's a bit of a crease at the top there, which fits nicely with one side, which is grooved on your phone, this clip. And then what you're hearing right now are actually notifications from the Insta360 app. It's detected that the gimbal is on and it's prompting me to quick launch the app. So once I unlock my phone, it says Insta360 Flow detected. I can click on that and then it's just gonna open the Insta360 app. My Flow is automatically connected. We're ready to record. Now, just as with the DJI OM6, this portable folding design does come at a cost. One of its biggest limitations, as you'll see right now, is its tilt. But that's it tilting. That's the extent of its tilt range. The Flow has a pan range of -230 degrees to 100 degrees, a roll range of -150 degrees to 180 degrees, but a measly tilt range of just -100 degrees to 82 degrees. A lot of other gimbals that don't have this dual hinge folding design, they can basically look completely down or completely up. So if you've got a lot of large objects, whether it's buildings or you just want to get some more interesting shots, it becomes a lot more difficult with this style of folding design. That said, if you're able to shoot with those limitations in mind, the fact that I can quickly flip this and kind of lock it into place like this, and then just fit it in my pocket, whether it's a jacket pocket, my pants pocket, or just throw it in a bag. This is a very small design that's about 2 hands big. Just as with those gimbals, while the Flow excels at producing smooth pans and tilts, it's still gonna struggle to compensate for those up and down movements when walking or running. This is a common limitation with mobile gimbals due to their smaller size and limited range of motion, especially when compared to heavier and larger professional setups, which often do a better job at minimizing the Z-axis bobbing motion from up and down movements. That said, you can still achieve very impressive results by minimizing your movement and taking a more deliberate, slow ninja walk, or simply by standing still and just letting the gimbal handle all of the movement for even smoother shots. But here are a couple other cool things with this design. First off, we have a built-in extended pole, selfie stick, whatever you want to call it. The extension pole extends to about 7.4 inches, and that allows you to capture more of your surroundings in your shot, which can definitely be useful in a lot of different scenarios. For example, when shooting a group of people, you can use the selfie stick to fit everyone in frame without having to step back too far. It allows you to elevate the gimbal either above you or to get more unique angles from down below. Whether you want to get more in your shot or just get more creative shots, this is actually a really helpful tool. And as I'll talk about in just a bit, using it in combination with this next feature, built into its bottom are feet. These actually turn the gimbal into a little bit of a mini tripod, especially when you extend its pole out. So while its overall height is not the tallest, For something that's compact and fits in your pocket, it's hard to beat its convenience. In fact, there have been a number of times that just putting this on a bench, a park table, it was high enough in combination with its built-in selfie stick that I could get eye-level shots, and then using it with its tracking features, I was a solo filmmaker filming myself, and I didn't need to worry about what was happening behind the camera while I was in front of it. And while it is impressive that they managed to fit these tripod feet into the base, there are a few concerns. The feet can easily snap off if you apply too much pressure or accidentally set it down aggressively on a surface. Even though we found the rest of the Flow's body to be very well made, I foresee this being a point of failure for many users, if not careful. Now, in a somewhat unique approach to the typical dials and controls that you find on most mobile gimbals, Insta360 has opted for a touch circle. It works for the most part, although I do have a little bit of issue when using it with gloves, even ones with the capacitive finger. It can be a little bit weird, and sometimes I just wish switching between our modes didn't require us to turn this wheel. It's cool, it makes it futuristic, but it's just not as practical compared to just toggling a button, for example. Now, aside from that, you do have your regular joystick in the middle, and when your phone is attached, depending on which shooting mode you're in, this will adjust your different axes. Of course, you have your recording button, you have your power button, and then you have this button here that, depending on how many times you press it, either will toggle between landscape and shooting in vertical mode, or will change between shooting in selfie mode or using the rear cameras. We have, of course, our trigger on the back here, which will either lock the gimbal or change it to follow modes. And something you might not have immediately noticed is that we've had this silicone grip attached, which gives you additional grip, but it also helps prevent this from accidental drops too. Gives it a little bit of added protection there. And then lastly, we have this dial, which doesn't turn all the way, and this can be used to toggle between the camera's different lenses or to zoom in or out digitally. Now, there are a few last things that I want to share with its design. The first one is actually the back of its arm here. You have this semi-translucent back, which actually displays some of its internal components here, which is pretty cool, very similar to the Nothing phone. And lastly, and funny enough, this is something I didn't realize until a few weeks into my review, but there's this small little cover here that when opened up reveals a cold shoe mount. And so if you're like me and you want to attach some accessories, whether it's lights or one of my favorite products, the Rode Wireless Go 2, you can attach your transmitter or your receiver here, basically any other small accessory that has a cold shoe mount, and it's not going to mess up the balance of the gimbal, as it's not actually attached to your phone itself. But of course, if we want extra length or we just want added stability, we do have our regular threading at the bottom there, which allows us to attach it to quick release plates or just attach it to a tripod really quickly. This offers USB-C charging on the side here for charging up your device. You get about 12 hours on a single charge, which is relatively decent, even with heavier phones like the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And then for actually charging your phone itself when in operation, because obviously video recording can drain your battery quite quickly, this acts as like a little mini power bank too for keeping your phone running a little bit longer using the USB-C, which is at the top here. So it's a close connection here. It's not gonna cause your cables to have to travel all the way up the length of the gimbal, so it prevents it from tangling up. That's nice. But in addition to that, Insta360 also offers the Flow light. That's this little thing right here. It's a small little light that uses a USB-C to power itself, and it has 3 levels of brightness and 3 levels of color balance. It's kind of interesting. I both like it and I have a few concerns with it. So of course you can either clip it to the top or the bottom, but as you can see, it can be a little bit tricky. You can accidentally knock your phone off if you're not careful when trying to attach this light here. When the gimbal is on, as soon as you plug this in, the light's gonna power on. Again, you've got the 3 levels of color balance and the 3 levels of brightness. Though again, it just doesn't feel as powerful as I'd like. But especially when compared to other gimbals that we've reviewed in the past, including the Giant Smooth 5S, this really isn't that powerful. Now, as we've discussed, the Flow's design does have its pros and cons, but honestly, where this gimbal system stands out is with its software. And actually, because this is the same Insta360 app used for all their other devices, if you're familiar with that, you're gonna have basically the same exact experience using it with the Flow. It's going to give you controls for your manual settings if you want to do that. You also have options for switching between time lapse, time shift, and you get all those other great tutorials that come with the Insta360 app. Now, beyond your other shooting modes, including slow motion, dolly zoom, widescreen mode, as well as, of course, switching between regular photo or video modes, you also have the ability to control a lot of your smart AI features, which are packed into this app. And that's also one of the things that distinguishes itself from other smartphone gimbals. So box dragged over my face, selfie stick out, and that's how you can use this to film yourself. Now, you have to make sure you're looking over here on the left side if you want to make it look like you're looking at the camera. Otherwise, if I'm looking at myself over here, it looks like I'm looking off to the right side. But I can then switch this around and it'll begin recording on the other side. Click it again, recording me on the back, walking sideways, around like that. And it follows really quickly. I mean, look, I'm not moving, but it's keeping me in frame. I mean, that's a pretty cool looking shot like that. You have a little bit of control, it looks like, using your joystick, but not much. This is it auto zooming on you somehow. Like that. So tracking is really good. As someone who often has to film themselves while on the move, I appreciated how simple it was to activate the tracking feature. I've been trying this out with a lot of my recent e-bike reviews. All I had to do was ride into frame, make a fist towards the camera, and it would automatically begin recording and tracking me. And when riding up and down the pier, the flow stayed locked onto me and kept me in the center frame for the most part. Even as I rode behind columns or made sporadic movements, it was surprising to see how quickly it could lock back onto me a few moments later when I reappeared. These tools make it so much easier and more fun to film yourself. You don't have to worry about the camera or worrying about staying in frame. The flow handles all of it. Of course, there were a few times where I either rode too quickly or the flow didn't know to lock back onto me when I reappeared behind a column, but for the most part, the tracking exceeded my expectations to the point that I now regularly use it to film my other reviews. Now, DJI has been one of the leaders as far as tracking and using a companion app to really take advantage of their hardware. Insta360 is definitely up there, and despite this being their debut gimbal, I think they've done a great job. So the Insta360 Flow is priced competitively at $159, very similar to its other main competitor, the DJI OM6. Although it does have that rather limiting tilt range, the Flow is one of the most compact and portable mobile gimbals with a range of handy features. We'd love to see improvements with the hinges that hold its feet, as well as a better fill light solution, but as Insta360's debut model, the Flow gets a lot right. But beyond that, it's its software that really helps this gimbal make a name for itself. So let us know your thoughts on this system in the comments down below, and if it's something you'll be adding to your kit. This has been Paul with MakeUseOf.com, and until the next one, we'll catch you later.